Welcome back. You are listening to Nate the Hate on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. It has been a while. We apologize for that inconvenience. We had planned to return to you last week, but I was hit by Hurricane Isaias and lost power for 5 days. But we are now back and fully operational. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We are trying to get to 15,000 subscribers before the end of the year. And joining me today is my co-host, MVG.
What's up, Nate? Great to be here. Welcome back, and I'm glad you're safe. And it's good to be back recording.
It is good to be back. And joining us for our returning episode is VentureBeat's own Jeffrey Grubb.
Hey, I'm glad to be back too. Yeah, I saw you missed a few weeks. I took some vacation time. I figured you were just kicking back as well. I forgot about the hurricane. Yeah,
the hurricane was definitely an inconvenience for me, knocking out power, internet.
Yeah.
So, it was fun kind of getting disconnected for a few days, but then you realize I haven't done any work for the week, and that's not good, especially with a podcast when you have to stay engaged with the community. But we are back, and this episode is dedicated to Shamsa, who gave a $100 donation. Thank you for your generosity and continued support to the channel. And reminding everyone, if you want to help support the channel, we have a Streamlabs link in the description below. Any donation of $1 or more, you can ask us a question that we will answer at the end of the episode. If you donate $100 or more, we will dedicate the episode to you. And today's topic, we're going to get right into it. It's about Nintendo and their 2020 and how August seems to be the month where Nintendo is finally going to start communicating with us, because they have dated Pikmin 3 Deluxe for a end of October release. And it's left a lot of people kind of curious as to what's Nintendo going to do for the year, because dating that game in another 2 months has left August and September vacant. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is they're about to get very vocal with us. We've seen the rumors that Nintendo is going to have a presentation probably within the next week. And there's even further rumors or speculation that Nintendo is going to talk to us again, probably before the month concludes. And that means one of two things. We're going to have a direct, be it a general or a mini. And right now the implication is that there appears to be an indie showcase coming up in the near future, which follows the trends of, previous years, where Nintendo typically has an indie showcase around Gamescom or PAX Prime. And based on Jeff's Game Fest memo, everyone has looked to his time window there and said, well, that kind of matches. So what do you think, Jeff? Do you think we have something from Nintendo in the next 7 days?
Yeah, I think we probably do. It's real still hard because they are. I know you say they're going to get more vocal, but that hasn't happened yet. So we're waiting for them to kind of get back into the flow of things. And what's that going to look like? I still think there's the possibility that it's just going to spring on us in the same way that they've done a couple of these past ones, where maybe a 12-hour notice, maybe no notice at all. And also, there have a lot of options to pick from how they're actually going to roll these things out. The reason it's still a wild card on my list when people go look at the summer game mess is because it really is. They could be doing a tweet, they could be doing a mini, they could be doing one of these mini partner showcases, which are even smaller, it seems like. They could be doing an indie thing, or it could be a full general direct. All those things are on the table. But in the way that they even finished the last mini partner direct thing, it was like saying, oh, look for more of these coming in the future. So I would definitely expect more of those soon as well. So what's coming in the next 7 days? I don't know for sure. I've definitely heard games scheduled for a direct that don't fit the bill of an indie showcase, or even like a partner showcase. So I would expect something more, but maybe not necessarily in the next 7 days, but something is going to happen.
Yeah, generally speaking, I do anticipate that Nintendo is going to have a more formal Nintendo Direct within the next few weeks. Whether that means the end of August or early September, I'm not going to specify at this time, because we're still early in the month of August. Schedules can change, plans can change, delays can happen. But I think Nintendo is now, they're ripe for a general direct. It's been almost a year since the last one, and 2020 has been a rough year for them, but they have to communicate with the fans, and they just gave out their earnings release. They've had an amazingly strong first quarter, over 5 million pieces of hardware sold, 20 million units of Animal Crossing. They've had a good start to the year. And when you looked at the numbers, it's one of their lowest spendings of marketing that they've had since the system launched. So they're really just they're running on the name and the brand at this point. They took their foot off the gas and they're just coasting. And I think they've hit that point where the coasting and the momentum is kind of running out. And what better way to build up some excitement than having a direct? We keep waiting for it, and now is the time. And the direct would have to be substantial. We're still waiting on games that we have discussed now several times. Pikmin 3 finally got announced, but we're still sitting on the Mario 3D Collection, 3D World Deluxe. Ideally, another holiday game from Nintendo. And I don't think any of these games would really suit just a random Twitter drop like Pikmin 3 Deluxe got.
Yeah, I think
I
the
agree.
Mario collection is not a random Twitter drop, right? It's part of something bigger, than that. I think the Pikmin 3 thing, we talked about this the last time the three of us were chatting about this a couple of weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago now, after the partner showcase direct. I think we came out of that saying, things are probably just going to get pushed a couple of weeks, and here we are. It's been a couple of weeks, right? So
Yeah.
I would expect that the Mario collection gets a direct or some type of something bigger than a Twitter drop on a Tuesday morning.
Yeah, because if they're going to have like the Mario 35th anniversary themed hardware for the holiday, you'd want it in a direct.
Yep.
You'd want to also detail these 3 games in a direct in a meaningful way, because you're going to talk about the visual changes, how, what you've done to the games, because Mario 64 can't just be a simple ROM dump. That would be insulting to the game and frankly insulting to consumers, because we've seen games like Turok 64 and Doom 64 clean up the visuals, make it a very pleasant experience to play on the Switch.
Shout out
And
to Night
it
Dive
also-
Studios, by the way.
We've also seen, some people have seen. I'm not going to incriminate myself. The Mario 64 PC port, and so we know what is possible to do with that original source code
Yes.
that they clearly still have. So, yeah,
there's a lot they could do with it. So, you want to do right by the consumer and by the games, especially the game's legacy. I mean, it's still heralded as one of the greatest games of all time. It revolutionized, the 3D platformer genre. So you want to do right by it, and you want to give it ample time in a formal direct. Then you have Sunshine and Galaxy, which admittedly need less work to really look visually impressive. I mean, by no means is this going to be a visual showcase for the Switch in any way with this collection. It's really just kind of, it's a nostalgia package. It's going to sell well this holiday. It gives Nintendo, a nice little game to throw out there. And then you have 3D World Deluxe, which every time we see Deluxe attached to a Wii U port, it comes with fairly substantial new content. We've seen just Pikmin 3. It got a lot of new single-player content. So if we expect similar from 3D World Deluxe, that would probably require, a direct just to talk about the new content. Because it's not a simple Wii U port like Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Right.
This is going to be more similar to Pikmin 3, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where we will get new content. And frankly, Nintendo has to justify the $60 price point that they're going to slap onto this game. And I guess it's more of a question of the release timing of these games. 3D Collection, I would say we're probably in a consensus that will come out in September.
Yep.
3D World Deluxe, I could see being maybe December, maybe even January 2021 at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if it's coming out this year. That one is a little harder to speculate on, I think, because it could definitely be something they may just hold I don't want to say hold back, but finish and get ready for January, right?
yeah, December or January. I think they're comfortable with either of those time frames. So yeah, it could easily fall into that, and because they have pushed everything back, they probably are thinking, well, we should continue to do that for a while until we feel like everything's back to normal. So yeah, I could totally see that as well. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that has to get that they're gonna want to get out there, and not just from them. I mean, I know that EA's still itching to get Apex Legends into a direct so they can show gameplay and convince people in Nintendo to get excited about that, because you see like these state of play plays come and go, and like, oh, there's no EA stuff in there, no Activision stuff, and you're like, oh, they must just not like Sony must not care to have that stuff in there. And it's actually the opposite. Sony would really love to have that stuff in there, but all those publishers really know how to talk to the audience that is on PlayStation and Xbox and PC. They have no issue like reaching out to them. The Nintendo audience is a little different. Like that's why the Direct is actually kind of a hard thing to replicate for these other companies, because Nintendo can speak to its audience in a way that no one else can. And so when EA has a game to sell and they need to figure out a way to speak to the audience, the only real viable path for them is a Direct. So you end up getting these really jam-packed presentations that feel like there's a lot there, and it's just because everyone is just waiting for Nintendo to give them a chance to talk to that audience. And it's been beneficial, and that stuff's gotta have been built up, beyond Apex Legends. That kind of stuff has had to have been built up from other developers, other publishers over the year, with the lack of a Direct for so long now. So yeah, I would expect there to be a lot when it does happen.
So I have a question for both of you guys real quick. So are you surprised at the date that they announced Pikmin 3? Or did you kind of expect it to be October?
Yeah. I was definitely surprised that it's so late in the year, because we've heard about this game for a long time now. It was originally intended to release back in May and early June, and to see it come out at October 30th, kind of a time of year you don't think of Pikmin. You think of Pikmin as spring, summer, bursting of life just by the nature of the game. And now it's coming out into the gloomy death of fall. It just feels weird. And it was surprising because you announce it in the first week of August for the end of October. It seems like if you wanted to announce it now, you probably could have still dated it for mid-September, assuming that the 3D collection wasn't coming out in September, because that's probably going to have its own month dedicated to it. That's the game for September. We're celebrating Mario on its birthday month, so we just want Mario there. But it was a really random announcement. Why didn't you announce this 2 weeks ago? Like, I don't understand what the rush for Pikmin 3 was, and then to date it so late into the year.
That's the thing. That's why this is throwing me off, right? Like we say that, a Direct makes a lot of sense. It's like, well, why just not wait for Pikmin 3 in the Direct then? Like doesn't that make even more sense? I mean, it does stand on its own in certain ways, and maybe Nintendo is going to do a kind of thing where they don't put most of their stuff in there again, or maybe it's just like a Mario Direct or something like that, and it really does focus on Mario, and that's why it makes sense. Yeah. I'm sure we'll look back and be like, oh, okay. I guess I'm not sure of that. It's Nintendo. I'm not sure of anything, but it's still like going forward. It's like they could be doing any number of things, and so when they release the Pikmin 3 stuff like that out of nowhere, I'm just like, okay, Nintendo, fine, whatever.
Yeah. When I first saw the Pikmin 3 stuff, I saw it on my phone. I was without power, and I was kind of like, okay, that's random. My first thought was, well, what does this really mean for August? And I saw a lot of tweets and YouTube videos and forum posts all say, well, this must mean Nintendo doesn't have a Direct this month, because you would have included Pikmin 3. The first place my mind went was Pikmin 3 wasn't big enough to have in a Direct this month, and they cleared it out of the way because they have bigger things. They have more software that they need to focus on. They had to announce Pikmin 3 this year, and they just said, get it out, because what we have in store for you over the next 4 to 5 weeks is substantial.
And that makes sense. That makes sense, because think about the way they've been holding on to it. Like, so we've you and I both repeatedly said they've had this for a really long time. So they've been kind of just keeping it in their pocket, and you don't like, oh, well, now it's in our pocket, let's go find a place to fit it into this next Direct. No, you're holding it for like an emergency situation, and then that time goes by, and you're like, okay, well, we're still putting this Direct together separate from Pikmin. We're not even really thinking about Pikmin as an option here, because that's not what Pikmin is here for. It is there to be this thing that can fill in gaps as we need it. And now that this Direct is coming together, now we know like where we can announce it, where we can fit it in, and we're looking at the calendar. There's not a lot of time left in the year. Is it gonna go? Are we gonna try to rush it out before this stuff after just announcing it? Okay, you know what? Let's just put it in October. Forget about it. Maybe mention it in the next Direct, and then the Direct can be the thing that we've been putting together for all this time. So to me, that makes a lot of logical sense.
Yeah, Pikmin 3 is, as you said, it's a filler game. It's a masterpiece on the Wii U. It's one of the Wii U's best games.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I love the game. Like, I'm not talking down about its quality. It is a great game. People should play it. If you haven't, pick it up on the Switch later this year. But in the grand scheme of things, when I am planning an August or early September direct, a general direct at that, I'm going to have a lot more stuff from third parties. Nintendo, potentially, you'd probably expect them to maybe talk about some early 2021 stuff. Maybe we see a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer at this point, because we didn't get anything at E3 because there was no E3 this year. And we have now gone over a year since the last time we have heard or seen anything of Breath of the Wild 2, which makes you wonder, why did they even announce it at last E3? So you they're definitely at a point where if their 2020 is limited to maybe only another 3 to 4 games, they have to talk about early 2021 to get people excited about the prospects of the future, because the present for them isn't great in terms of output. Quality games, nothing exciting. You need to get excited about something. So show us a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. Show us something for 2021 from Nintendo's internal studios. Maybe a game that got delayed from 2020 to 2021, but something. In this direct, which I do think something has to happen this month, and I do lean on the Pikmin 3 announcement as kind of evidence of that. It has to be huge. It has to be a big show. It has to be their E3.
Yeah.
I think that's what they have to do. But before we even get to like that mammoth direct, we have seen the talks of like the indies and stuff. And indies have played a pivotal role for Nintendo. But it's more difficult to predict what we could possibly see at an indie showing.
Sure, yeah.
You really never know what a company has. You really, like, how many indies have been announced over the last, since March, that still don't have release dates? We haven't heard of the Golf Story sequel since it was announced. We haven't heard of Silk Song in a long time. The Cuphead DLC seems to have gone missing. There's a lot of stuff that Nintendo probably needs an indie direct and a general direct to basically detail the rest of their 2020 at this point. And some of it is because Nintendo was just far too silent this year, and due to COVID and all these other marketing logistical disasters that have occurred. And I think it's now or never for Nintendo. I think August is now, and it's do or die.
Yeah, and I think this is what we were saying last time, right? That it was weird that they were that they did that partner direct, and it was so lackluster. And what are they thinking? What are they going to do? And it's like, okay, well, let's put it in perspective. They still have all of August left. What's going to happen? It's like, okay, well, I think we're getting to that point now where it's like, okay, it feels like stuff is going to happen, and this is the finish line for them in terms of like staying quiet. They have to cross it now and then burst out into their big victory and say, okay, we're back. Here's all our stuff. And if it went into September like this, that's the month after August, right? Yeah. If it went into September like this, it would be like, okay, now it's weird, and it feels like that's not going to happen. And that's the good thing. That's what we were all saying, like, had to happen. It seems like that's going to be the case. I'll say that John Vignacchi, one of the guys that puts together the indie showcase, was liking a bunch of my tweets this morning. So he must be like looking at my my summer game mess thing to figure out what date to set it as. So that makes sense to me.
So you're the one. So you're the one setting the dates, Jeff. I
guess so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I just it's negative space. It's the dates I don't put in, and then they can fill in those other dates. Yeah. Exactly.
Nate, I think you brought up some interesting points about the general direct and that they need to, come out with something big. I still don't think Breath of the Wild 2 fits in that space, but I do think that it will be something we'll get to see this year. I still feel like it's going to be a Tokyo Game Show or a Game Awards type trailer instead. But I think if you go back and listen to our direct predictions episode, I still think that applies. I mean, other than Pikmin 3, obviously not being a part of it, I still think you could go back and listen to that and use that as kind of the blueprint for what I think the general direct will be. Like, I've always said that this direct is going to be a big one, and it's just kind of been pushed down the line a couple of weeks, versus the one that we thought we were going to get, and instead we got the partner showcase instead.
And what's weird is when you think of the partner showcase, came out July 20th. If we do have an indie direct coming up within, say, the next 7 days, maybe 10 days, whatever. And then we end the month with a general direct. Was it really necessary to have that partner showcase? Or was it, I know like the general consensus was this was a contractual obligation. You had Rogue Company released that day. You promised us it would be highlighted in a direct of some sort. So they're like, what can we call a mini direct that's not a mini direct and that it's going to have no expectation whatsoever? Partner showcase. It's kind of like, okay. But at the same time, it's like, if you're going to have an indie show coming up soon, I guess you don't want to delay your game. Right. But at the same time, it just feels like if I'm Atlas, nothing that we showed had to be July 20th. If you're going to have a bigger show in a month, wouldn't it have been better to have Shin Megami Tensei 5 highlighted in that direct with the Nocturne HD remaster? It, like, the partner direct is the only thing that throws me for a loop.
Yeah.
Still,
I think if you're a partner though, if you're one of those developers and you're talking to Nintendo, and Nintendo's like, well, we're not sure exactly how we want to do this. We might try different branding. Like, what does that really mean to you? Like, I mean, is it still a Nintendo Direct? Yeah, it is still a Nintendo Direct. It's a partner showcase, but it's still a Nintendo Direct. I mean, you haven't seen that before. You don't know what it is. So I think you're still trusting Nintendo to put on a good show in the way that they usually do in the past. So I think, like, you know, Atlas, if they get asked, you know, oh, hey, do you want to put this stuff in this thing in the show for us? I mean, we're fine with that. If you're okay with it, I think Atlas says, yeah, sure, why not? It's a Nintendo Direct, right? Yes, it's a Nintendo Direct. So they say yes, and they try to, they probably don't think about it much beyond that until afterwards when people are like, why is everyone mad at us? Like, Nintendo, what did you do? So I don't think, like, I think maybe going forward, people be like, wait, we don't want to be in a partner direct. That's like tainted or whatever. But up until this point, I think that no one had known yet. So yeah, I still overall I agree with you though. Like, why not just wait? I just think that maybe they weren't thinking that way.
Now I kind of wonder now if the partner direct is a toxic brand where maybe now, like, if we do have the indie show coming up and then a general direct, whether or not it's this month or early next month, if they're at that point of production where they can make full general directs, it probably means you can put together some minis. You probably don't need to go back to that partner direct branding anytime soon, because this should indicate that all three divisions are functioning at a reasonable level. I mean, America is still the big question mark. We don't know what the future holds with COVID. We're about to open schools, and that can just bring about wave 2, and that could be devastating.
America's on the threshold of hell, and we're just going to have to deal with that. So, yeah. But everyone else is getting their shit together, and so Nintendo's like, okay, well, America could just figure it out on their own. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, like, if they do a general direct, I think they can do partner showcases afterward. I don't know why you would hold it off for a partner showcase instead of putting it in the general direct, unless it's just something that doesn't fit in, or if it is like the launch of another like free to play game that you want to like highlight that day or something like that. I think, but if you get a general direct out of the way and people are happy with it and they're still buzzing, and then in like the following weeks, you could do smaller stuff that is like a partner direct that just feels like, okay, we get it. Well, you just did this big thing for us. We're excited about all these games. I'm still watching the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer again and again or whatever. And then at that point, if you have other games you want to tell us about in this weird way, people will be much more accommodating with that, I think.
Yeah, the partner directs definitely, they feel like they need to perfect the marketing message if they're going to do those again in the future. It can't be months of nothing and then here's a 6-game partner direct of some niche Japanese games and a random free-to-play shooter that was in beta a week ago. Like, cool, this isn't what we wanted. I guess, yeah, if they have a general direct before the month concludes, that is substantial. And then you have another partner direct, let's just say like mid-September, it would probably be more, it would be embraced warmer than the initial episode because you have finally given the fans what they want. And even with the impending, speculated, rumored indie direct or indie showcase, I shouldn't use direct because that's not the branding, I think Nintendo is kind of running a risk even there because the only first-party announcement we have had is Pikmin 3 Deluxe. They're going into this indie show potentially with no new first-party information.
So you're concerned that the people unhappy about the partner showcase.
Yeah.
The response. You think that if they do come out with the indie showcase, then it will be a similar type of reception?
I could see it, unfortunately, going into a negative light because people are going to say, even if you have fantastic indie games.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes when we look at the indie showcase, Nintendo does have a weird type of handling of them where if they highlighted you once before, they won't necessarily highlight you again. So that means we could potentially not see Silk Song.
Right.
We might not see the Golf Story sequel. Those are the games people want to see. Those are the big indie games. Those are the exciting indie games. And if they're not going to have that in this show, and you could have a bunch of brand new indie games that look fantastic from prestigious indie developers, you do run that risk where people might say, well, where are those games that we wanted? How come Nintendo hasn't done anything of their own? They should have done a general direct first. And if we look at, the patterns, let's go back to March.
Yeah.
We had an indie show. Then we had a mini. So even if you replicated that now, I think it still just comes down to that long stretch of silence where, again, the only dated game from Nintendo is Pikmin 3 for the end of October. And I am definitely an avid believer that we are not going through August and September without a Nintendo published retail release. That would be very uncharacteristic of them right now. You can't go that, long of a stretch without a Nintendo published game. And I get people say, well, Paper Mario just came out in July. They have to come out in August. Date a September game, which should be 3D Mario Collection. You should probably date your December game or a November game. We still have the Pokemon DLC that's supposed to be coming out this holiday.
A game per month, right? That's kind of the tempo that we've expected from them in the past. I think that they're not going to have a game per month, including August, but I think going forward, they might be able to hit that. So I think Pokemon Snap's probably definitely a November kind of game, but it's that's also that's probably not it's probably not big enough on its own. I know it has its fans. I like Pokemon Snap, but it feels like a very like a rental game where you rent it over the weekend and then you forget about it afterward. I feel like even that can't be the only thing. So, but a game per month is what I would expect.
You think Pokemon Snap makes 2020?
I think there's a chance. Yeah,
I think there's a chance as well.
Yeah, I'm not expecting in 2020 just because we do have the DLC expansion for Pokemon Sword and Shield. I think they would probably want to have that shine. Maybe release a completed version of Pokemon Sword and Shield at retail this holiday.
Yeah, that's got to happen soon too.
Yeah, with both expansions. And then you have Pokemon Snap as the nice spring 2021 game where you go on your nice little hike and take pictures of Charizard falling into a volcano. I mean, that was one of the highlights of the N64 one, hitting Charmeleon in the head with a rock and forcing him to evolve, which is kind of violent when you think back on it. But I think it really does feel like it's now or never for Nintendo when it comes to 2020.
What about what about these Twitter drops, right? So we've had Pikmin 3, Paper Mario. Was Pokemon Snap a Twitter drop as well?
It was part of the Pokemon Direct.
Pokemon Company's Direct.
Pokemon Company Direct.
So we've kind of got this precedence that, these, I hate to say it, and someone's going to get mad at me, but these kind of not top tier first party games, you got Pikmin 3 and you got Paper Mario, which are fantastic games in their own right, but it's not fair. They're not the the Animal Crossings and the Mario
20 million
Galaxies
copies,
of the world. Right?
Yeah.
The Mario Karts. Is that precedent something that you'll think will continue, where Nintendo will continue to use Twitter as a platform for those, I'll say, B-tier announcements?
Yeah. I think anything that's not upper echelon in Nintendo's view in terms of sale or budget will continue to see those Twitter drops. And I mean, it's not disrespect to those games. It's just, I don't need to have 5 minutes of a general direct dedicated to Pikmin 3 or the next Kirby game.
Yep.
We kind of know what to expect from a Kirby or a Yoshi game. And a lot of time when you see those presentations or those demonstrations in the directs, a lot of the people watching say, okay, move on. I don't need to see this for 5 minutes. We get it. It's a new Kirby game. And I think, especially for 2020, when they have a direct, they have to focus on those bigger games. They have to look at the big games coming from third-party partners and say, we're going to give you, primed placement in this direct. And then Nintendo's going to look at their own software of the 3D Collection, 3D World Deluxe, etc., and say, we're going to give you top billing as well, because these are the games we want to sell, not only from ourselves, but also from our partners. And we don't have time to waste on the lower end games. And I mean, I would include, as much as it pains me to say, I would include something like No More Heroes 3 in that lower tier range.
Right.
I wouldn't waste precious general direct time on No More Heroes 3.
Yeah. I let me ask you a question. Do you think Halo Infinite's going to be in the next direct?
Maybe. Wouldn't that be something? Poor Halo Infinite. What a mess for Microsoft. They haven't had a good month since they showed their next generation gameplay showcase, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's been I don't think it's catastrophic for them or anything like that. Maybe this Halo delay is, but like up to this point it hadn't been. But yeah, this feels like a real tough beat. So I guess you want to talk about the news and we could talk about this for a little bit.
Yeah, why not? Halo is just, it's mind-blowing to me that they came out, they showed the 8 minutes of gameplay, and we're just a few weeks out and they come out and say we're delaying it.
It's like a thing now, isn't it? Like, didn't they do that with The Last of Us Part 2 as well? Like the first delay?
They did.
Cyberpunk did they do it with Cyberpunk as well? I mean, it's kind of,
Cyberpunk has been delayed so many times.
I know. I mean, it's kind of part of showcasing a video game that we're going to show you something and we're going to delay it. A couple of weeks later. I'm not. It just seems that way.
Yeah, I mean, like the marketing team can only have so much idea. Like they have to assume that the timelines are going to just keep going forward as they think, even if everything's on fire behind them. The marketing teams just have to keep pressing ahead, and it's like, you say you're gonna get this out this holiday. It doesn't look like it, but we gotta do something. And I'm sure it helps that once you do show it, like there's a backlash, right? There's backlash to the game. Not for all of these games, but for in Halo Infinite's situation, it definitely had a backlash, and it's like I don't know if it's necessarily that different from like the backlashes that Halo has had pre-release in the past, where people are always complaining about the graphics. People have done that with this series for a long time. But I think it's just that expectations are so high. It feels like the stakes are really high for the series, for 343, for Microsoft as its strategy going forward. Like this game is it's pivotal to a lot of things. It's pivotal to say like this is a reason to get Game Pass. We're going to have big games. We're not just going to have like the cool Outer Wilds. We're also going to have AAA Halo releases that you have to play, and it's going to be so good it's going to last for years through the multiplayer that you're going to just keep playing and playing and playing. and it's like if that has a bad first impression, this whole thing could blow up in their face. So they really do have to get it right. And then when you show it and you hear like some negativity, I bet it's real easy to say, look, we've been telling you for a long time we need to delay this game. You need to listen to us. Look at what people are saying. I bet that argument gets a lot easier at that point. Making games is hard, it turns out. So, and I think this is another good example of that. And I think we're just gonna this game seemed like it was doomed from the moment that the creative director left, right? Like that happened about a year ago. And I think ever since then, it felt like, okay, are they going to really be able to get things back on track? I know Microsoft was like, oh no, this kind of thing happens all the time. It's like, maybe not at that level. That seems like a pretty big departure to have to deal with and keep on rolling. And then also hit a fall release date at that point. So I don't know. But 2021 is when this game's coming out now, huh?
Yeah, and the weird thing is they didn't really even give a time window beyond the year. It's not like they said we're only delaying it for like 6 months. This could be a substantial delay.
Yep,
could potentially be something like into next holiday. And we knew the game was coming in hot when they showed us it a few weeks ago, and immediately after saying, yeah, we have to patch in ray tracing and all these other elements to take advantage of the Xbox Series X. And it's kind of like, oh no. you guys are actually pretty much just dropping an Xbox One game on the Xbox Series X at 4K, and you're going to make it special eventually. And once they came out with that marketing line, that was concerning, and they 100% had to delay this game. It is the right decision through and through. This isn't. This wasn't a mistake to delay it. They had to.
And I don't know if it necessarily even works that way. I think if you go and get the oral history of this, they're not going to be like, we were making an Xbox One game and we're just going to make it special eventually. It was probably like, oh, the AMD ray tracing stuff isn't quite ready yet. Like that stuff's coming together. Those graphics cards aren't even available publicly for any developer yet. So us trying to figure it out on the fly when that stuff's still kind of it's still in the oven. We're building the plane while it's in the air, sort of thing. I think that that's the kind of thing that can cause these sorts of problems, and not necessarily like, oh, you're just you're making a game for one system and you're going to just update it later. But that's how it feels, right? That's what that's how the perception is, and that's kind of all that matters. So yeah, I got a question. If you're Phil Spencer and this happens and you do have Microsoft money, do you start looking around for a game to launch this system with? Do you try to go get like a big exclusivity deal? Do you try to make a big acquisition right now and make a big splash? Like, is that the answer?
Yeah, I would go out there and find some third-party game. I know we talked about like Cyberpunk before, and CD Projekt Red said, no, that's not getting added to Game Pass. If I'm Phil Spencer, I'm getting more aggressive and saying, what do you need from us financially to make that happen? Because we need some sort of big exclusive, whether it's Game Pass or a time exclusive at this point. The medium isn't enough. You're launching a system without a first-party exclusive. And that can be devastating. Not that Microsoft's first-party efforts have carried the platform. They're not Nintendo. They strongly rely mostly on third parties. But you position this to say we're launching with a brand new Halo game, this big, expansive, brand new Halo experience. And it got delayed a few weeks later, and we don't know when it's coming out. And right now, the launch window is the medium. Everything else is cross-gen. And you're going to have Sony launching with PlayStation 5 exclusive first-party software. And Microsoft doesn't have an answer. And Microsoft hasn't even dated any first-party releases for early 2021. As far as we can tell, a lot of the games that we saw at their event probably are 2022 games.
Yeah. So, and this isn't the end of the world. Also, try to remember the first 6 months of any console. Can you even really remember anything other than playing Mario 64 and being like, man, I'm gonna play this forever? And then 6 months later, you were looking around for other games. But that first 6 months, it's kind of a blur. It's very small in the grand scheme of things. But it does set a tone, and you do want to you have to be building momentum starting then, right? You don't want to start building your momentum late in 2021. That's too late.
And that's the challenge for Microsoft, I think, right now is how am I selling you this $500 piece of brand new hardware? And right now they don't have an answer to that. They can't just say, we have Game Pass, we have an awesome back catalog of software. You're going to have, you can play Xbox original, Xbox 360, Xbox One games. You're going to get better performance, resolution, and frame rate if you play it on the Xbox Series X. But it's $500. And you haven't given me a reason from your own company to invest. Sony's giving me reasons. First 13 months is a long time.
I would say give people 3 months free, 3 months free Game Pass, and say play whatever you want for free for 3 months. We're sorry.
That it would definitely lighten the blow and sweeten the deal. But I do think Microsoft has to go out there with their checkbook right now, and whether it's Call of Duty, NBA 2K, any of those major third-party franchises, and just say, hey, Activision, Call of Duty, Game Pass, here's a check for $500 million.
Yeah.
It's you have to do it.
They could do it, but it's just it's like, man, it's late.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the difficult part. It's so late in the game right now that you got to think everything's been locked down pretty good now.
Yeah.
I would say
there's companies that could go out. They could make a big splash with an acquisition, right? They could spend a couple $1 billion that way and be like, So this isn't necessarily going to have a big effect on launch, but very soon after that, these games are going to be in Game Pass because we own this developer now, or maybe they could get ready for launch, and maybe they're not new games, but it's like more big games in Game Pass, and it's like, okay, that could move the needle, but. And like these acquisitions, we see that people do get excited for them. They make a lot of headlines. People reference them a lot of times as reasons that they're excited about what Microsoft's doing. And they are promises for the future as well, which is like what you want when you're spending a lot of money on a console. But yeah, it just feels like there's just not very many AAA games out in the world for you to go out and buy on like at a normal time, let alone like 2-3 months before your system's about to launch. So yeah, this is it's a rough. Even with all the money in the world, this might be a tough thing to make happen.
This is definitely just a rough spot for Microsoft, and I'm sure right now internally they're saying to themselves, "I would love for Sony to come out tomorrow and say we're delaying the launch of the PlayStation 5 till March 2021," and they would say, "Thank you for those 6 months. We're not going to have Halo ready, but we will take an extra, 4 or 5 months, and we'll delay our platform because, I mean, as we've said, launching in 2020." Still has a lot of economic risks. The economy isn't great. People are still out of work. Video games are a luxury item. Yes, you're going to sell out at launch, but come early 2021, when people are really strapped for cash, sales could potentially slow. So, I mean, we're not going to see a delay. No one's going to give up those holiday sales. But I'm sure it's in the minds of both companies of, if we have to, we might. And I'm sure both companies are looking at each other saying, we'll do it if you do it. We're just not going to announce it first.
Yeah, that's what they're doing with everything right now with the prices. But like, I mean, that's why they're being that way with the price, right? Because they're just like, we can see the economy. We know we're going to sell out everything that we make for the first 6 months or whatever. But there's still that potential where it's like 6 months from now, if people aren't happy or the economy does get significantly worse, which it could, these prices could look really out of step, and we might have to like cut the price, which has its own implications. And maybe we'd be willing to do that, and maybe people would understand. But I think a price cut that early on usually isn't, I don't think, taken too well. I think people kind of like lose faith a little bit. I suppose it didn't happen with the 3DS. Now that I'm thinking out about it, but maybe that's a different market. So yeah, both these companies are actually in tough situations. Microsoft just put itself in a little bit worse one right now. So
yeah. They fell pretty hard right now. They stumbled over their own feet and they landed face first on like the concrete slab, and they're kind of looking up saying, damn it. But I mean, they still have Lockhart. That can be a game changer for them whenever they decide to detail it, hopefully this month.
Yeah, that's coming this month. Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be their affordable option. It's going to be significantly cheaper, and that might be enough of people saying, I want to upgrade. Hey, if it's only $299, beautiful. But,
and they'll find other ways to make Game Pass like more appealing. Like they've got plans for that. They'll and it's like, it's not going to win over everybody, this kind of stuff that the options they have available to them, but it's still going to make it more. It's still going to make it like, it's the best deal in gaming. It's going to get to be the better, like an even better deal in gaming. People are going to just continue to sing its praises because of this kind of stuff. So they have options to get people excited. It's just, you're right. Like, the first party console exclusive thing that people want to turn to as the reason that I'm spending so much money right now at launch, that's not going to be there for them, and that could hurt.
Yeah, I mean, they'll eventually get there. We've seen the promise of the future. It's just we have to wait for them to deliver on it, and in the immediate, it's just it's disappointing to see Microsoft launching their brand new hardware in such kind of shambles. But hey, by 2022 we'll be talking a completely different narrative when it comes to Microsoft and the Xbox Series X and Lockhart. So, we're concerned today, but it doesn't mean we're concerned about tomorrow for them.
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
Yes, they will. And we have a Streamlabs question from Nintendonomics, who donated $30. Thank you. And their question is, Camelot Software has averaged a game every 2 years since 2010. While it's possible COVID could disrupt this routine, history suggests an announcement soon. Will we see anything in 2020? And if so, what do you think it will be? Thanks, and keep up the good work. I don't expect anything from Camelot Soft in 2020. I could see them maybe having like a Mario Golf in 2021, but I think 2020 has kind of expired for a Camelot Soft release at this point. I can't see Nintendo really marketing even a Mario sports game or, like a Golden Sun tier game at this point. So 2021, I would expect something from Camelot Soft, and it was probably due to COVID, likely delayed it a little bit and pushed it if it was
Yeah.
planned for this year into early next year. So probably within the first 6 months of next year, I think we'll see a new Camelot software game for the Switch.
Would agree.
Yep, same.
And that's the only Streamlabs questions we had for today, because we have been absent for almost 3 weeks. But as another reminder, if you have questions for us, you can donate $1 or any amount to our Streamlabs. You can find that in the description below. To support the channel and ask us a question, we will answer it at the end of the episode, as we just did. And that will conclude today's episode. This was a short one. Unfortunately, our schedules dictated that we didn't have too much time this afternoon, but we did want to get a new episode out there for everybody. And you can find MVG's YouTube channel and Twitter handle in the description below, as well as Jeff's Twitter handle and link to VentureBeat in the description below. I'd like to thank MVG for joining me today.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yep, always a pleasure to have you with us. And I'd like to thank Jeff for joining us once again. You are a fan favorite.
Hey, I love being here, man. Hopefully next time we'll have an actual announcement to talk about.
Yes, hopefully Nintendo has a Direct. Maybe if they just announce a Direct, we can give some predictions and, and we can react to it the day after. But yeah, we'll definitely have you back. We love having you. And until next time, continue to embrace the hate.